Okay everyone, welcome to a little presentation that I've put together on a position in the markets in RWS holdings that I've had this week. I'm going to be talking about the Form 8.3 and Schroders and Barclays and the differences in purchase and a sale regarding RWS holdings share price. So let's get started and I will try and break it down in bite-sized chunks. So slide 1, what we call a Form 8.3? What actually is that? And these are disclosure forms. They're required by law um, for UK listed companies that are in a bid situation. So any person or entity that has an interest of more than 1% of the total share capital of a company, um, whether it's a purchase or a sale, they must disclose their positions and their dealings in those particular shares or companies so that they are made public. So that's what an 8.3 form is. And today we're going to be tailoring that to a trade that I took this week in a company called RWS Holdings. And we're going to be looking at the 8.3 form and how we can use that information to gauge demand from uh, asset management companies and holding companies and their bias on a particular stock. So let's actually break down the 8.3. First thing we can see at the top in subsection 1A is the name of the disclosure. So this is the company that is disclosing their positions, not the company that I'm trading, but this is the company that's disclosing whether it's a sale or a purchase in a company. So if you go down to section C, you can see the name of the company that they're building, that they're taking a position in. So that company is RWS Holdings, and that's what we've been trading. So what we can actually see here is if we go down the purchase date. So this is the date that the deal was done. So the 2nd of this month, which was on Monday. What's interesting though is this file was published on the 3rd, on the Tuesday, at around 1 p.m., around lunchtime in the UK. So just keep that in mind. There's about 24 hours between the two. So what do we know so far? Well, we can see on this side, we know it's Schroders are disclosing a position in RWS. They took the position on the 2nd. Let's have a look at whether it was a sale or a purchase. So if we go down to section 3A, we can see that in this case, it was obviously a purchase. We can see the number of securities, so the number of shares that they purchased, and also the price. Okay, so from that, we can work out what is the value of this position. What is the total value? Well, we can see that pretty simply put, it's 150. They bought 155,224 shares at an average price of 571. Roughly, it's about £900,000. So we can know that that's how much they've spent. So if we move across and actually look at the chart of RWS Holdings, we know that the position, Schroders took a position on the 2nd, which was a Monday. They purchased RWS on Monday, which is the physical date. The 8.3 form was published on the Tuesday, 24 hours later. So this is a screenshot of Tuesday. The purchase was made on Monday. And this is a screenshot then of Tuesday. And if we actually look at the share, on Tuesday morning, once the 8.3 form was published, and it was actually published around 1:15 p.m., we can see the stock had started to rally. We had roughly a 1% spike here at the time of the release. So the share went from sort of 548 up to sort of 554, which equates to about a 1.1% increase in price. So how can we use this information to be monetizing it, these 8.3 forms? Well, if we go across, and this was a screenshot I took, again, this was a screenshot I took on Tuesday, and this shows, so this was the previous day, this shows what we call the time and sales. One day after Schroders made their £900,000 purchase, roughly, and we can actually see there was some rather large positions going through the books on the morning uh, of the form being published. So Schroders published on the Monday. Schroders bought on the Monday. We were actually published on Tuesday. This is a snapshot of Tuesday's positions. So actually Schroders bought Monday, and we can see on Tuesday at 10 in the morning there was another large transaction, larger than Schroders' position. There was two here at 450, and we can see the price is now averaging on the third, which is on the Tuesday morning. The price is now averaging 546. Previously, I've talked about where we were trading here, 546, 550 in that region. So we're beginning our ascent higher. If we fast forward to Wednesday, this is on the 4th. So remember, Schroders bought on the Monday. The 8.3 form came out on Tuesday. And then fast forward to Wednesday, you can see this gigantic spike in RWS holdings in the stock. So what can we actually see here? The trading day on Wednesday begins at 561, so it's already higher than Monday and Tuesday. We've gapped up about that percent, and then we close Wednesday at £6.23, so about 11.5% increase. The peak for the day was about 12.89%, just under 13%. So for this particular share, it was the single largest daily rally since April of this year. So it's a pretty significant move, and you can see, we haven't seen moves like this since April. So what caused this move? Well, as I mentioned previously, partly to do with Schroders building a larger position. And of course, what we can then do is back test and look at Schroders' total exposure, which I'll come on to in a minute. So we can see here, Schroders' total position on Monday, they put in about £900,000 or 886,000 before fees. And on the close, on Wednesday's close, so this was Monday, by Wednesday's close, and we closed at £6.23 a share, their 886,000 is now worth about 967,000. So they made about 80,000 approximately on that one position. Now Schroders is a UK asset management company. They have more positions than this than just the Monday's position, so you have to keep that in mind. But for the argument's sake, I'm just looking at Monday's snapshot. So 11.5% increase for the Wednesday. Pretty impressive. So how can we actually compile the data? What do we need to look for? Well, these forms, you have to manually compile them. I typically look at the position size. So if we go back, I look at position size here. So that means number of securities. We look at open interest, so total amount in a given security. And then we look at average price opening. So the price that this asset management firm actually purchased, Schroders purchased RWS shares. How many shares? What is their average? Depending on your time frame for a trade or an investment, you would have to tailor it to that. This is a short-term position, so I wouldn't be compiling the entire year-to-date Schroders position in RWS. Once you've done these, you're going to get something called the total exposure, which is essentially how you can work out a company's buyers on a given stock. So if they're continuing to buy into a share, it doesn't always mean it's bullish. They might be buying through what we call gritted teeth to increase their own exposure for whatever reason. In this case, it wasn't really the case. So what about other asset management firms? So in the title, I talked about Barclays and Schroders. I'm going to talk about the Barclays exposure. So we know that Schroders purchased on Monday. On Tuesday, the shares gapped up about 2% when the 8.3 form became public. On Wednesday, the market gapped up another 12%. And this isn't a penny stock, this is a mature UK company. So to have a move like this, as we said, the last move was in April of that year when we saw a 13% move in a day. It's not something that's common with this particular share, so you can understand the magnitude of the move and how important it was that Schroders disclosed this, and how we can use it to perhaps monetize. So the next thing we need to do is how can we compare open interest against different asset management firms. So this is a screenshot of Barclays interest in the 8.3 form, and we've got a mixture here of purchases and sales. So to summarize, we've had Schroders' recent purchases began on Monday. Their average buy-in was £5.50. The form was published on Tuesday. On Tuesday, the share price rose about 1%. And then on Wednesday, the share price rose another 11% on the back of the data that we had. So what's a company like Schroders going to do? How do we know when they cash in? If they're going to sell their positions, is another asset management firm going to buy it? Well, in this case, I'm outlining the positions for Barclays PLC in this share. Okay, so what we can actually see is that some of the sale prices for Barclays for RWS started at around 540. So that was actually as we began that 1% spike on the Tuesday, and they've carried on selling up to about a high so far as of yesterday, up to about £6.19. Now remember, we closed quite a bit above that on the day of the 12-13% spike. Okay, so the fact that we closed at, as I was saying before, £6.23, which was Wednesday's close, we can see that Barclays continued to sell up to about £6.19, and these are recent transactions. So if we look at purchase amounts, total purchase amounts of Barclays, and compare it to, for example, sale prices, the recent purchase amounts, which go up to here, equate to about 1.4 million. On the sales side, it's much less. So it's interesting to see that as this share price has gone up about 13%, 14% this week, Barclays have been selling off some of their exposure, and they've been selling it from as low as 540, literally as we began to rally, and they've been selling it all the way up to 619. The key takeaway is that Barclays still have positions in RWS, and they're still net long. So in the next video, we'll start to look at some of the ratios. I'm also going to talk about some of the swaps, whether they're long, short, and also a little bit on the CFDs. So I hope that helps, and that is my video. Thank you.